Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be reacting to the 2022 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class. This is a sequel video to a video I did a couple months ago here on the channel when I was reacting to the nominees that were released for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for 2022. When the full ballot was released, I reacted to each of the names on the list. So I'm going to do something similar here for this sequel rant video, I guess you can call it. I'm going to be reacting to each inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here for the class of 2022, which are as follows. You got Duran Duran, Eurythmics, Pat Benatar, Carly Simon, Lionel Richie, Dolly Parton, and Eminem. Personally, I'm none too pleased with this list of inductees into the 2022 class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on each inductee and if I feel whether or not they should be in the Hall of Fame. So let's get started here with Duran Duran. Let me start things off here by saying that I am not a Duran Duran fan, but if you are, that's totally cool. Personally, it's just not my thing. However, I have no problem with Duran Duran going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, seeing that they are a legitimate classic rock group. And, you know, on this list of inductees here, there aren't a lot of classic rock performers that I could pinpoint and say, okay, well, they definitely fit the bill. So Duran Duran, I really have no problem with them going into the Hall of Fame, even though I'm really not a big fan of theirs. I can definitely see why they're being inducted. You know, they've got millions of fans, they've sold millions of records, right? So that's totally cool, and really have no problem with Duran Duran going in, even though I'm not a big fan myself. We move on now to Eurythmics, and, you know, I was a little bit hard on Eurythmics when I did my reaction to the nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, and I take that back. You know, I'm not a big Eurythmics fan, I'm just really not. However, I can definitely recognize that they are a classic rock duo and do fit the bill for the Hall of Fame this year, so I think I did overreact just a little bit and came off sounding a bit uneducated when it comes to the Eurythmics on the video I did a couple months ago, and I do take that back. Really no problem with them going into the Hall of Fame, similar to Duran Duran, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan. Just not my thing. However, if you're a fan of Eurythmics, that's totally cool. Me personally, they're not my thing. However, I really have no problem with them going in this year. Pat Benatar is finally going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and here's an induction I can get behind. Pat Benatar definitely deserves it. Definitely one of the best female musicians in rock and metal, and I did a video a couple days here on the channel counting down the top 15 greatest female musicians in rock and metal, which I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. But Pat Benatar was featured pretty highly on the list, and she definitely deserves it. She's a very talented performer. She's got a number of great tracks, right? Classic rock radio staples as well, and I saw her live a couple of years ago. Still very solid live, a great performer, and somebody who definitely deserves it. A legend, and somebody who I have no problem with going into the Hall of Fame. As a matter of fact, she was one of the people that I would have chosen to induct into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when I was doing my, 5 inductees mock Hall of Fame nomination part of the video I did a couple months ago. Next, we've got Carly Simon, and, you know, really, I would not have put her in the Hall of Fame myself. I get it. She has done a lot of work in pop rock, soft rock, folk rock over the years, so she definitely does fit the bill in that regard, but not really somebody that I think of when I, immediately think of classic rock performers, female musicians in classic rock, but nonetheless, it's not the most egregious pick here on this list, so I really have no issue with it, but we're moving into more murky waters here as I'm starting to more and more disagree with this list of inductees into the 2022 Hall of Fame. Also being inducted this year, we have Lionel Richie, and, again, Lionel Richie, somebody who is very respected in music, and, somebody who has dabbled in just about every genre, except for rock and roll prominently, and, I disagree with this induction to the Hall of Fame. If you were to have a contemporary music Hall of Fame, or an American Music Hall of Fame, I think Lionel Richie would definitely be an inductee, a total shoo-in, but for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it just doesn't work in my opinion. I don't agree with it, and personally, I don't think Lionel Richie, for his music, does fit the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I should say, but like I said, any other Hall of Fame, I think Lionel Richie would definitely be a shoo-in, but for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I don't really think of Lionel Richie when I think of rock and roll, so I would definitely not include him in the Hall of Fame, so I disagree with this induction. The most egregious induction yet is Dolly Parton. I'm not a Dolly Parton fan at all. I've heard her music. It does nothing for me. Is she a talented person? Yeah, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, she's not a good fit at all. And I mean, what happened here? She said that she was going to decline being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame refused to take her off the bill. And now she said that she would accept it gracefully. She's humbled, and, I don't know. I totally disagree with her being on the ballot to begin with. I disagree with her induction completely. She does not belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You might as well just rename the Hall of Fame at this point because rock and roll clearly means nothing to these people. Dolly Parton is not a rock and roll performer in my opinion, and She does not belong at all on this list of inductees. So Dolly Parton, I strongly disagree with her induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And she was somebody who really earned my respect when she said that she would be declining her induction to the Hall of Fame this year. But since she's gone back on her words, I'm not really sure what to make of it. It seems a bit hypocritical, now that she's been inducted, but or that she's going to be inducted. She was confirmed as an inductee in the 2022 Hall of Fame class. But I disagree with it, and it's really not my thing. I don't like it, and I'm not too happy that Dolly Parton is being inducted. Speaking of inductees that I am none too pleased to say are going into the Hall of Fame, Eminem. Before I go any further, let me say that I had a lot of angry Eminem fans coming after me for the rant video I did, responding to the nominees for the Hall of Fame a few months ago, so I do want to say this. Eminem is somebody who is well respected within his genre of music and definitely would fit in a Hall of Fame for his genre of music, but for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, absolutely not. I'm not an Eminem fan. I am familiar with his music, which is one thing that a lot of people had said. People who are these huge Eminem fans that, had never seen my channel before, that were coming here and just leaving nasty comments about Eminem and, how he does belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I have heard his music before, and it's not rock and roll. I'm sorry to tell you, but I completely disagree with this induction into the Hall of Fame. And look at it this way. Here, I'll make an analogy here. Tom Brady, somebody who is very well respected within his sport of football, right? A shoo-in for the Football Hall of Fame. But would you induct Tom Brady into the Baseball Hall of Fame? Absolutely not. Why? Because he's not a baseball player. He's a football player. I feel the same way about Eminem. He's not a rock performer. He does not belong in this Hall of Fame. Does he belong in a Hall of Fame for his body of work that he has done throughout a number of different genres over the years? Absolutely. But for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Absolutely not. He's not a rock performer. And just a terrible fit here for the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, is Eminem. Don't agree with it at all. None too pleased to say he's going in. And, before people leave nasty Eminem comments down below, I'm not an Eminem fan, but I am familiar with his music, and he's just not rock and roll, especially not in my opinion. So Eminem, not somebody that I would choose for the Hall of Fame on any day. We have two recipients this year receiving the Musical Excellence Award, that being Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Judas Priest. And this is what I really wanted to talk about here, was Judas Priest, their inclusion in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, but as Musical Excellence Award recipients, not members of the main inductees list, which is pretty disappointing in my opinion. When I saw the ballot this year, I was desperately hoping that Priest would be included on the main list of inductees when all was said and done. Unfortunately, they did not make the main list alongside Eminem and Dolly Parton and Pat Benatar and Lionel Richie, so on and so forth. But at least they are getting something, or receiving the Musical Excellence Award, but I can't help but feel like they deserve so much more. Priest, one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time, a pioneering band, one of the best from the new wave of British heavy metal. Rob Halford, one of the greatest vocalists of all time. Over the years, they featured incredible guitarists such as K.K. Downing and Glenn Tipton. Total legends as the entire band. I saw them live a couple months ago. They're still fantastic in a live setting as well. Rob Halford sounded great. And I just feel like Priest deserved to be part of the main list of nominees this year. The fact that they're only getting the Musical Excellence Award is a bit unfortunate. I wish that Priest would have been getting a little bit more respect here, would have been put in the regular class of the Hall of Fame. So it is unfortunate, in my opinion. At least they are getting something, and maybe I'm being a bit hard to please, but Priest deserve a lot more, in my opinion, personally. And I think that they're definitely a legitimate nominee for the Hall of Fame. Somebody who's a lot more legit than Eminem or Dolly Parton or Lionel Richie, in my opinion. And that might be a bit of a polarizing thing to say, but I think that Judas Priest would be a much better fit than the nominees that I mentioned before, that being Eminem and Dolly Parton and so on and so forth. But all in all, I guess that it's good that they got something, but I'm pretty disappointed, and I wish that they would have gotten more. Just to refresh here from the video I did a couple months ago when the ballot first came out, these are the 5 musicians, 5 artists, 5 bands that I would have picked for the Hall of Fame this year. These are my choices, who I would have liked to have seen been inducted as the main inductees into the Hall of Fame, that being Judas Priest, Pat Benatar, MC5, Rage Against the Machine, and New York Dolls. Unfortunately, only Pat Benatar got in under the list of the main inductees. Judas Priest is receiving the Musical Excellence Award, but like I said before, I think Priest deserve a lot more. I'm pretty happy with that 5 that I gave. I wish that those 5 would have gotten in, but obviously people like Dolly Parton and Eminem, Carly Simon as well, also got inducted, so a few of my picks definitely got bumped. That's pretty unfortunate. All in all, I'm pretty unhappy with the Hall of Fame this year and its inductees. Only a couple I can say definitely deserve to be there, in my opinion. And Judas Priest, like I said, deserves so much better. It would have been a huge step forward for metal had Judas Priest been inducted as part of the main list of inductees, but I guess I can take what I can get here because this is probably the closest that Judas Priest will get, or any heavy metal band at this point will get to a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nomination. So it's pretty unfortunate. It is what it is, and all in all, a pretty lackluster class here for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that wraps up this rant here, reacting to the official inductees into the 2022 class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like I said before, none too pleased with this list of inductees. Only a handful of them I would say definitely deserve to be there. So, like I said, not really too satisfied. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel down below. Turn on the bell for notifications to be notified of a new upload. And let me know down in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the inductees into the 2022 class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Are you pleased with the inductees this year? Who would you have liked to have seen gotten inducted? Let me know all that good stuff down in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions on this matter. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.